Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a podcast where we discuss big issues and try and listen to each other and, you know, do stuff. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
This week, what are we talking about, Ivanka?
This week we are talking about rage.
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 So anger, but more than that.
More than anger.
What made you want to talk about rage, Ivanka?
Brett Kavanaugh.
Right.
Climate breakdown. Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah. So you're feeling a bit of rage?
I am feeling rage.
Right.
No.
You know, what are we going to do about it? How's it going, Ivanka? How you doing?
It's going
I haven't
good.
seen you for 2 bloody weeks, have I? At least.
No. Are we not? Yeah, no. I'm back in grey Brighton.
Grey Brighton.
looked at the weather forecast for the next 5 days. No rain.
And I know
just
you've been
grey.
in foreign land, but it's pronounced Great Britain.
Sorry.
See what I did there?
Very, very funny, Michael.
Oh, well.
So I'm back in grey Brighton.
Mind flooded.
And I am, what am I doing? I've been very busy. I've got some work lined up for November, which I'm delighted about. I was thinking about the art episode, and I'm not sure that I said all the many things I would like to say about art. I think, or, you know, whether I think art has an incredibly important role to play in the world, not just to make you feel good, but to make you think.
Well, I think you said that.
Did I?
Yeah, I think you got that across.
Okay.
I think, you know, the only thing with the art episode, you know, I just said Patreon exists, and you got really like, yeah, but not everyone knows about Patreon. I was like,
Well, they don't.
I'm just saying it's my one fucking ray of hope. Like, I'm not saying everyone's doing it. I'm just like, this is my one fucking maybe this might work. No one knows about that. Fuck you. All right, Jesus. So I had a bit of a sulk in the middle of that recording, just because I was like, why is she being mean to me? No, fine, whatever.
Oh dear.
But there was that. What do you think? That Banksy shredding painting was
yes,
everywhere
the
this
Banksy.
week.
That was.
What? I think I would prefer if it had actually shredded the whole painting, though, the whole thing, because now
Yeah,
it's just like this half shredded painting. Who doesn't want to buy that now? So it's like, you know, Banksy.
It's like now painting with tassels.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, you know, it didn't destroy it, did it? It just multiplied its value.
It's mental.
It's
isn't it,
just
really?
anything. Just anything is anything. And like, but Banksy. We didn't talk about Banksy, but his
We didn't.
His like, it's like, here is some politics that you can identify with because it's kind of obvious. Like, he's not really breaking any boundaries, is he? Or do you love him and I'm just being mean? But like, he's playing with the form and he is like trolling people to hell. And he's certainly, I mean, yeah, you can't argue. But it's just like, when it's like, oh, look, policemen, but are they bad? It's like, yeah, you know. Oh, imagine a gun with a flower in it. Ooh, is that one of his? I don't know. It's like, ooh, I'm challenging your very belief system. Are you though? Or are you just... It's okay.
I think he does, certainly. And when we've discussed how sort of popular media has a role to play in making people think, well, he makes provocative art accessible.
Okay, he's certainly, as a member of Massive Attack, he's I guess he knows how to like pander to an audience, I suppose, or play to an audience. It's like just enough that you can call it artistic, but not so much that it scares anyone off, kind of thing.
And I think that's, you know,
that's a very
like,
fun. Wish I could do that.
Yeah. If Project Fear is bad and failing, then perhaps he's got the right sort of. I think he can be admired. But he's very accessible.
Yeah. I still like Space Invader. I think. The one that does the little mosaics of Space Invaders around all over the place. As a street artists, but, you know, obviously it's not really in the same league.
So Yeah. How was your week, Michael?
I turned my phone off for like a day and a half last weekend, and it was great. I think I've just sort of I've stopped trying to resist it, and now I just feel like a sort of rat that keeps pressing the little morphine button even though it's run out of morphine now, and I'm like, oh, maybe if I launch the Facebook app again automatically something will happen. It's like, no, it won't, just put it down. So yeah, I just turned it off, and Sharon really kind of commented on how much more present I was, and just I did a bit of drawing, I sketched some mushrooms. I think we were just in the room together. It was very nice. And I sort of almost didn't want to turn it on again. But then the next day it was on again. One of the reasons I realised, when I'm not with Sharon, my phone is Sharon. So there's no wonder I'm sort of like holding it there, because it's like, that's my connection to you. But when we're in a room together, I can probably just generally turn it off, especially if it's the weekend. So I'm going to I'm looking forward to doing it again this weekend. Certainly Sunday. I think just phone off on Sundays.
It's a good idea.
Because you really I don't think I'd even realised, just hearing the feedback, I just don't even think I'd realised how much it's just like there. We still watch telly, but even when it's sort of in the afternoon, I just sort of opened my laptop to just get something onto the TV, but it was like, even just for like 2 minutes, and then I closed it again, I kind of felt dizzy almost. I was just like, whoa. Should we get angry to talk about anger/rage, or should we just try and talk about it dispassionately and wait for the rage to emerge?
I think we should talk about it dispassionately, as if it were an academic observation of rage.
How did you find out that Kavanaugh had still got in? Because that happened while my phone was off.
Whilst I was away, my sister texted me one morning and said, Theresa May's going to do a press release outside of Number 10. Get online. So I installed a news app so that I would be able to watch it. And then my sister quickly texted me. She goes, don't worry. She didn't say anything. No. It's nonsense. Yeah. But I've left the news app on my phone, so I keep getting these notifications now. Which I switched off this morning because it started telling me about royal weddings.
The Apple News app was doing that to me. I can't remember if I must have turned it off, because I used to get the odd kind of useful bit of news, like breaking news, through the Apple News. But once it started telling me royal wedding stuff, I was like, why are you being so racist?
Partly because of my Twitter name. I get a regular update on American politics, and I feel far more engaged with it than I ever have in my whole life, because it's there, and I usually get either backlash or support. Honestly,
Ivanka, you don't have to have that Twitter name to be steeped in American politics right now. Honestly feel like I'm seeing so much more American politics than British.
Yeah, why is that?
I just think that it's more TV friendly. Also, it's just British is I can't. True. It hurts to British is you got to eat your American politics is like dessert kind of thing, because it's sort of just far away enough, but British stuff, just anything you see is just it's just not even. It's it's like aspic or something, just horrible. I don't know. I don't know what's like a horrible savoury food that you just don't want to eat, but you sort of should you?
I can see.
I don't know.
So I can't engage with this. I just don't. Yes. So you're kind of keeping it at arm's length, getting all this American politics, and part of me is thinking, why should I care who's appointed to the Supreme Court of America land? Who gives stuff? But I did have, as part of my recent I must be more vocal about politics, have an ongoing Facebook debate with somebody who was talking about, America's ruined, America's over, America. And I was like, America is still the number one exporter of ideas. And, it still has this massive cultural influence over the world. People aspire to this sort of American pop culture. And if the Americans are appointing a man who had no defence,
just lying about stupid stuff, not a judge. That guy wasn't a judge by any stretch of the imagination.
No, he just was a
calendars. What the jeez?
Another man-child throwing his toys out of his cot because somebody's actually called him out on something that he did that was wrong.
Yeah, just didn't even answer it, did he? Just like, and then just the fact that people can still somehow, with any grown-ups.
Grown-ups can somehow sort of post-rationalise it and explain it and sort of either try and pretend it didn't happen or sort of go, oh, you know, young guys do that kind of shit. No, they don't.
No, I've never...
No. You know, it's like there's an article that I shared that got quite a lot of, engagement, which is, the headline of the article is something like, I went to a party all dressed up and nothing happened.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because I didn't encounter a rapist and I didn't encounter an aggressor and I didn't encounter... It's like, there's the vast majority of men don't do that kind of shit.
And to be honest,
Thank
if
God.
I think about myself in the position where someone was like, oh, not sure even, I'd be like, oh God. I'd be like massive feelings of rejection and just kind of want to run away. Like, I mean, what does it take? I just can't even understand what kind of person can just think that something is theirs for the taking and would just force something like that. It's obscene and... he had no defence, and
I've been trying, because I have been thinking about this. I've been driving across Europe for 2.5 days in a van, so I'm like walking to the service station thinking about Brett Kavanaugh and what my reaction to it is. And I don't think my reaction is, as a woman or as a mother or as a mother of a daughter. My reaction is as a human in 2018. How can it? And what's worse is that this is not the first US Supreme Court judge person who has had similar accusations. I think it's like 20 years ago, Clarence something, he had accusations made against him and he got voted through again because this voting of the American Supreme Court is to do with political parties and not to do with humanity. If you're judges are being voted for, it's like, oh, well, as a Republican, he's our representative, he's the person we've chosen, and therefore I must vote him through. No, you must not.
I guess the reason you choose him is because you can bully him to say whatever you want by the look of him.
Which is just horrendous that you would bring sort of a legal body, frankly, into disrepute, into question. I don't know how anyone can have any respect for this thing that he's part of.
Have you looked at comments? Have you seen the things that people are saying about her? Like, it's just disgusting. It's just people just say anything to defend their worldview. And even if it's just, can you understand how monstrous what you're saying is? It doesn't matter because I'm not going to change my beliefs.
But it's so, this sort of idea. I've watched Trevor Noah's commentary on some of it, and he does a very clever set of commentary about it, including the fact that, kind of Trump sort of makes it all about the victimhood of men. Men are getting accused, and it's terrible, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, not that many, mate. And she has performed her civic duty, frankly. She's gone out and said, I know something about this person who is going to be in a position of great respect and authority, and I'm going to make sure that everyone knows that, that he is perhaps not everything that he says he is. And Donald Trump had actually mocked her.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of you see, that's where rage really comes in. Like, this man that represents the United States of America mocked a woman who described in great, believable detail
explicitly stated that she knew how vulnerable she was making herself.
Yeah.
Explicitly said and was brave enough to... This is something with there's not going to be evidence or proof of it in any kind of normal way. It's literally only going to be her testimony. She knows that. She stood up and said something. And I think it's a stretch to think that was a liberal conspiracy, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was,
Especially, I mean, I don't think this is I want to be careful how I word this, only because I don't want, I don't believe she's more believable because she's a professor. But I do believe that she has more to lose because of her job, because of what she does. There's no anonymity for her. There's nowhere for her to hide. You know, she has everything to lose for standing up and saying these things.
yeah.
So
It's a crime that is just implicitly problematic because no one's filming this stuff.
no,
It's like
yet.
well, and it's like in the midst of alcohol and the like sketchy memories and but you whatever happens, you're not going to forget an event like that. Like,
No.
and then like turning it into sort of a burden of proof thing, and it is a very, very serious crime that you're asking to sort of someone to be convicted on the basis of a testimony, and people are capable of lying. So that's the sort of terror of it. But there's not really another way to do it. Like, unless, now, if it happens to someone now, they can the next day kind of say, okay, well, let's get some, DNA samples and this and that. Or I don't know if that makes it any better or like.
No, it's a very difficult, it is, like you say, it's an incredibly problematic crime because if someone thank God, I don't have personal examples of this, but if there's violence, then there is evidence.
Yeah.
But if it's, and Deborah Francis White did quite I think, an excellent monologue that included a few things, but also covered the fact that the word consent is a bit odd in this. It's not enough. It's like, I consent to something being done to me. Rather, it's like, checking in with somebody going, are you still enjoying this? Are we still good here? Is this what you were after? Am I, it's like, there's a sort of engagement level that should, for everyone's enjoyment should be tested all the time.
It's a continuous thing. It's not you give someone permission at the start and then that's permanent.
and that's it.
Well, no,
It's
because
like,
you said already, so it's too late now. I'm going for it. Like that's not.
No, it's like, so I think even accepting that the fact that you're dealing with personal testimonies it does make it difficult. But she submitted herself to a polygraph or something, I saw.
Yeah, but those are made. Those aren't real. Polygraphs
but
aren't
I think
real.
he wouldn't even agree to be on one, though.
So I watched Lawyer Watches and comments on, like, he does like TV series about law, but he actually like did one on the Kavanaugh
amazing
trial
stuff on telly.
On YouTube. This
on
was
YouTube, sorry.
stupid stuff. But like he's sort of, and he was sort of commenting on it as kind of like a working lawyer and saying they weren't really doing a good job of prosecuting, like of doing the questioning, like when he was blatantly lying, instead of like forcing him to keep going down that lie, they would sort of like pull back because he sort of his criticism was sort of like, well, they weren't really doing a great job of because they're not really used to doing that sort of questioning, and they could have done a better job on the prosecution and sort of like caught him out and then been able to show, look, he's lied about all this stuff on record now. That like they're just leaving the names of like what's a devil's triangle type stuff. They should have just and all the sort of bullshit that he kept saying, that they could have done a better job in prosecuting on that, which I think.
But I think it makes it more difficult when there is no sort of tangible evidence that's like, yeah, that happened, no, it didn't. But you do then need to establish, if somebody's generally lying about stuff, or they're lying about circumstances surrounding it, then...
Yeah, well, that was their case, that they needed to kind of like get into his character a lot more, and they didn't really do a great job of that, apparently. And then the sort of like weirdly shambolic FBI investigation, I don't really know what that was supposed to achieve.
But it just another thing that seems to be happening. Like,
yeah, can we just have one thing that is going the other way for a change? And I think that's the rage part of this, right? It's like, what is it going to take? And even though we can still, I don't know, like, I circumvent the rage by going, well, she's set an example now that I hope more women will follow and just keep kind of blowing the trumpet on these things. I mean, even if it didn't work this time, she's shown that you can come forward with testimony, even if there was alcohol and, you know, things involved and it is a bit sketchy, you can still come forward. And if more women come forward and just people in general, then maybe we can get better at figuring out how to, you know, prosecute this sort of stuff. But yeah, no, it's just like, can we just have a fucking win, please? For once, can we just not have everything constantly seeming to go the wrong way? Remember when we thought there was going to be a female president of the USA? That was fun. That was fun for a minute, wasn't it?
But then again, with her, they had this. This is what gives me rage. This is where I feel rage in my gut. If I'm, you know, walking from my van to a service station in the middle of Germany, and I'm thinking about Brett Kavanaugh, the thing that makes me feel physically full of rage is the message that whole show has sent out to young men and young women across the world, men and women in general, but kids, like, you know, that it's so bad. Like this idea, because I have been in a position where somebody was, you know, not taking no for an answer, but I have been brought up to get angry enough, and luckily they did listen when there was enough anger and in my voice that they backed off. But they didn't really want, you know, it's like you have the right. Every one of us has. I even had a dream the other night where somebody was like, I think they patted my arm in this dream, and I was like, you can't touch me. You are not allowed. I was like trying to sort of reenacting these things in my mind. As I say, thank God, I am eternally grateful that nothing even close to what happened to Dr. Christine Blasey Ford has ever happened to me. But it's like I feel her rage on, you know, and the rage of all these women that have had these things happen to them and they don't get heard. And then an authority like the President of the United States mocks her.
Yeah.
It's just it's beyond outrageous.
Yeah, and I think it's important that the progress of this is that it's out in the fucking open for a change, right? It's actually out in the open where everyone is having a hard light shone on it, that everyone can get angry about it. And this has been happening for years, right? Like there's rapists in positions of power wherever you look. Like, but this, like, we're shining a light on these things. And so this one, we saw how messed up the thing is, and we've got to figure out a way to not let this keep happening anymore and change the status quo and smash the patriarchy.
Yeah, everyone's got to get on with smashing the patriarchy, because frankly, that's what needs to happen. So this parallel example from the 80s, the accuser was Anita Hill in this instance, and it was this Judge Clarence something or other. I don't care. Maybe I should. After he got his nomination went through, there was a massive turnout of women voting in America. But it seems like there was longer between, because the American midterms are in November. They're really soon. And I hope that the rage stays alive within us and gets translated into more,
rage. Well, I mean, if we sort of like move into the subject of rage more specifically, the thing about rage is it's tiring and it needs a sort of boost of adrenaline.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like, so ruling, like, so that you're because it takes a lot out of you to be angry, and you just sort of like, and especially when you've got nowhere to put it, it's just like tiring. But so that's why we have to act. Well, and which is a bit of a paradox, because we have to act while we're angry, but also sometimes our facilities might not be at that. I've sent emails at work that when I was angry, and shouldn't probably have sent those. Although I don't think it was,
maybe not had the result you wanted.
I don't know. I think it's generally worked out okay, but I don't know. I still think it's like to harness the power of rage is a pretty hard skill to get the hang of psychologically. Like, because as a young person, as you're learning to be a person, rage just turns directly into action. Someone like makes you jealous, someone does something, you stab them in the face and kill them and punch them and shout at them and get in a fight with them. Like anger, when it's just triggered and acted on, that's not a great kind of rage. And also when the rage, as it relates to your childhood, if your rage is getting triggered irrationally, that's something you have to be aware of, because I know that sometimes I'll get angry, but I know which ones of these now are the ones that are just me being triggered by something that I'm kind of conflating with a traumatic childhood event. But sometimes what I have learned as I've got older to spot is sometimes, no, this is rage that should be acted on as I am feeling it. Because especially, and it's important to act on as I'm feeling it, because it's going to take a lot of energy to act on it, and this rage can provide that. And if I leave it a day, I'll just be tired and I'll kind of have forgotten what the thing was, and like my window of opportunity will have closed.
Rage has we've deliberately chosen rage because I think it expresses far better the feeling. But I think also when you are angry, you can narrow and focus. I think rage can be a good engine. and it has action associated with it. It's not a accepting emotion. It's a rejecting emotion. It's a
destroying.
It's a response to something that you want to do, you must change, that you can't accept. Whereas disappointment, despondency, these they're much more passive.
Yeah. It's when
also
you
negative.
With rage is like you feel you have power in that moment still.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. It's like it very much narrows your focus. The danger of it is where you end up focusing on the wrong person, and that can happen a lot. Like in relationships, you can sort of end up focusing your anger on your partner when actually it's nothing to do with them. It's just like triggered a thing. But when there is a clear target, that's why.
I think it's often because this happened to me this morning on a work conversation with some bit of work I'm doing. It's like when you're feeling helpless or not in control, or when things are a bit difficult, you focus on the things you feel you can control and you can change. And sometimes that can be very positive for our psychology. Like I can't get out of this mood, but I can take myself for a walk. So at least then I've been for a walk and I've had some control over my physical, where I am.
One of those sort of stupid coffee shop signs you see that I do actually still quite like is coffee for the things you can change and wine for the things you can't. Depression for the things you can't change, and rage for the things you can.
Things that you can. And I think, the point of all of this is our rage has to be directed not our rage, our energy has to be directed towards political engagement of some form. It's like, has it been fixed yet? No. Keep on, because getting angry at men or getting angry, that's the wrong place to send the anger. But if it gives you the energy to every week write to your MP and go, have you done anything about this yet? Then, or gets you out to vote, or gets you to persuade someone else to vote, or do those kind of things, that just goes, no, it's not a waste of time.
It's hard getting angry at things that are far away, and this is something that we're faced with a lot now. Like these emotions are designed for someone that's in front of you, and when the person that's in front of you is actually on a screen from the past, thousands of miles away, it's sort of like it's weird. Like you can't just go up to them, which is what you want to do. So acting on things that are not directly in front of you is a weird thing with rage. But it's like what can we do about it? For me, it's like the Kavanaugh rage is almost like I don't know what I'd do apart from just continue to believe women when they say stuff, like not kind of I just hope that it will get other women that this sort of thing has happened to be vocal about what's happened to them. That's what I'd like to see happening.
This week as well on Facebook, I reminded a couple of blokes I used to work with about a work event we were at in London years and years ago, in which the owner of the company thought it would be... So we had been invited to dinner by the two owners of the company we were working for. So, you go along to the dinner. And there were 3 or 4 of us. There were 4 of us at least, if not more. What, in the hilarity of the evening, one of the owners decided to do is to put somebody's Rolex on his cock at the dinner table.
Charming.
So, I was there with 3 other male colleagues who sort of, as we watched this unfold, or like saw it coming, they sort of created a bit of a human shield around me, as if I was like, oh my God, I don't know where to look, I don't know what to do.
I'd like someone to put a human shield around me if that was happening.
I was at no age to... what I should have done is stood up and walked out, but I didn't. And then I sort of remember that I posted something up about burning down the patriarchy, and that one of these guys said, oh, what do we have to do to be allowed in? And I said, you're already in, you're allowed, you've already earned your spot on the, the equality side, because you already recognise outrageous behaviour and you've stepped in. And I listed the other 2 guys that were there, and none of them remembered it.
Oh.
It was like, to me, that was one of the... And the particular guy that...
So it happens all the time?
It's like, they didn't remember it happening. I was like, how can you not remember this happening? Like, this is the most ridiculous...
Rolex on the cock. Happens every weekend.
I didn't refer to it like that, though. I talked about it... I referred to it on Facebook as the Rolex at the Curry House or something, so... But they didn't remember. I had to explain it. I had to remind them. And it was just like, it was, I think a little bit of it is the vast, huge majority of men would never, ever do anything like that, or nor would they do anything like Brett Kavanaugh. I think that you can't sit by anymore.
No.
Do you know what I mean? It's actually more, I think, down to men to remind... To sort of like check their mates, to sort of go, excuse me, this is not, actually call out bad behaviour. And it creates all sorts of weird situations in the work.
It will, it's like I'm still not 100% sure the trainer that I kind of called out on putting on the rapey song has quite forgiven me. I think we seem to be okay, but I sort of feel like, it's gonna... The problem is that person has power over you, and even if like someone I'm paying is probably going to feel a bit like funny with me. Like if the person that is paying me feels a bit funny with me, just nudge economics, probably not going to get the raise, probably not going to get the, asked to run the thing. And that's why we're scared to do it. But
and that's the reason the 4 of us did not stand up in that restaurant and walk out,
exactly.
Because we were in our early 20s, beginning of mid-20s, at the beginnings of our careers, and it was the 2 owners of the company.
Yeah. Rage and those sorts of emotions are all projections of future / consequences / that kind of thing. It's the brain will kind of be compelled by some sort of like drug response into imagining like spiraling situations. And the way to get it under control is to sort of just come back to the present and kind of look at it and sit. But this is if you know that if you have become aware that maybe things are irrationally triggering you, like getting angry about the wrong naming convention for variables in code, right? That's not a particularly healthy reason
Rage.
to be furiously shouting at people and shaking, right? It's like,
No.
you uppercase your constants. Like, that is not legitimate rage fodder. And that tends to happen. I think it's like a bit of a nerd rage thing, isn't it? It's like we're unhappy about, things in our lives, and we channel that into being angry about.
Nerds can get very angry about things.
Yeah, and it's obviously like pretty misplaced, and probably there's something there that needs to be addressed. I guess so. Yeah, I suppose my point is, it's possible over time to start to identify, but the goal isn't never to become angry, right? The goal is to be self-aware enough that when you get angry, to kind of take a minute to decide if that's just to double check that that's coming from a genuine place, and whether you should act on it in the way you feel like acting it, or sort of suppress it. And I think I've kind of gone through over-suppressing, which isn't healthy either. Not suppressing it, but like not really taking any anger particularly seriously, or thinking it's always a bad thing. Right, and always feeling bad about having it, to now kind of like, okay, I if you can get sort of like healed and therapized enough, you can start to like use it correctly. I don't know, but I mean, if this section stays in, but thinking about the patriarchy, like if I do ever experience that rage that used to be pretty commonplace, it'll be in a dream where I'm shouting at my father. Which I haven't done in real life. It's not long ago enough. But yeah, I don't know if that corresponds to a patriarchy.
That's quite a literal patriarchy. That is your patriarch. In this world, if somebody does something to you, touches you physically in some way that you don't want them to do, you have every right to become incredibly angry, keep that anger, use it to fucking kill him. Oh, there's a dog there.
Destroy them. We'll use the dog. I'll amplify the dog. We'll bring the dog into this. Set your dog on him.
If anger in a moment when you are under physical attack from somebody or verbal attack from somebody, or they're doing something to you you don't want them to do, you should take that anger and give it to them full blast.
Trouble is, doesn't that sometimes come out a bit shit though?
I don't care.
Well, you're a poo head.
No, like in a nightclub.
Yeah.
What has happened to me more than once is somebody grabs your ass and you turn around. My immediate reaction is to turn around, fist clenched. What the fuck did you just do? It's like, and it tends to make people just think a bit. They usually call you crazy bitch, but maybe it'll make them think twice before they do it again. But that sort of anger, go for it. Though somebody else might tell you that then you're like, I don't know, personal safety, blah, blah, blah. You're allowed to be really fucking angry and at least say no in those situations.
I think everyone has a moral compass in there, and I think even like when people cross the line, they kind of know. Like the guy getting his cock out knows he's doing something wrong, and he wouldn't do it if there was kind of consequences. We need people to kind of introspect their own. We need to say, why do you think that is okay? Kind of thing. Like, what about that do you think? How can you think that's an okay thing to do? And try and kind of make the answer come from inside the other person, as maybe a better way of, I don't know, I'm preaching something I have no fucking experience of whatsoever, but like, is there, like, I don't think people are just, that do bad things, that, well, they might just literally have not thought about it or be aware of it, and they're just kind of like echoing the culture and like, oh, they've seen other people do it, they just do it. There's ignorance, but that's, I think, like a lot of the time when people are doing stuff that's not on, they know they're doing something bad.
But yes, I think, so what you were saying about people not necessarily being aware or doing it because they can and no one's ever told them not to. So they kind of out of pure trial and error have concluded that it's okay. Because I believe in redemption. I believe that people, otherwise I would believe in the death penalty. Otherwise I'd believe in, I believe that people can do wrong and learn from that and, carry on and have meaningful lives. I think it's a question of the problem with the Brett Kavanaughs of this world is he refuses to acknowledge even that he might even have done something wrong, and that is the problem. It's like in all these things where people go, oh, these are historic crimes, all this, Me Too, and things like people like the big spate we had in the UK of, Rolf Harris and the other one with the cigar and all those kind of people. Jimmy Savile, who were all massive parts of our childhoods. If you watch telly in the 80s, that's, but they did wrong. Yeah. And they did terrible things and people turned a blind eye to it, even enabled it. Yeah. And even if they've been sent to prison, many of them have not really acknowledged what they did as crimes because times were different then. It's like, that's not an excuse. It's not an explanation. It's not an answer. If you go, so it's that sort of, getting people to understand that something's not acceptable. And that comes from examples in society. Every single person that let Brett Kavanaugh through, that gave him their support, that gave him their vote, they have sent an awful message out into the world. And
they've got
that's
to
what's got.
know
they're
that.
The people that should be really sitting down and examining their own moral compass and asking themselves what they have done and whether some sort of loyalty to a Republican Party outweighs their loyalty to humanity.
Whatever the hell that is anymore.
I don't know, but that's what it is. That's what, that's ultimately, we want...
Ivanka, they're fighting the hard left. Didn't you know that?
Those lefty liberal crazies.
No, the hard left it is now. That's the
hard left.
The hard left apparently is a thing. We really, really believe in being fair to people and respecting people. We really, on a hard level, believe in really listening to people. It's a bit different to killing / expelling / ruining people's lives, isn't it? It's fucking not symmetrical. So how about the old climate then? How about the old coming apocalypse of death of
the planet?
Yeah.
Like that climate change report that came out Monday, Tuesday. I think one can accept that we've probably had the gentler, sanitised version of the report because people don't, it's like the 5 a day thing. That should be and should always have been 10 a day, but they reckon 5 a day was more digestible. So they've given us, 12 years to sort ourselves out? It's like, when people go, we've talked about straws and we've talked about various other bits and pieces. It's like, my rage is directed at the politicians who are ignoring it, at the people who send fracking protesters to prison in the United Kingdom in 2018, at, Michael Gove being our Environment Secretary, at Donald Trump pulling America out of the Paris Climate Agreement. I accept, because I'm a, grown-up pragmatist, that we've left it quite late to do anything about it. But we can't, therefore, sit here and just do nothing. And any rage you feel, any outrage you feel, any anger towards the people not doing anything, the best thing you can do is do something every single day yourself, because it does make a difference. Like I was reading something the other day about how basically to create the CO2 reduction that we all need everyone would have to take up cycling like the Dutch, I don't know, renewable energy like the Norvegs, whatever. But, there's like this whole list of actually everybody needs to do all these things to and then we've still got very little hope, but at least we can do something. And, do the things. Don't buy shit you don't need. Don't put your heating on, before. Don't walk around your house in December in shorts and a T-shirt and have your heating up. Put a fucking jumper on and turn the heating down. Don't, drive down the road when you can get on your bicycle or walk. Don't, there are many, many things you can do to reduce your impact on the planet.
How let's say, just as an example, that someone like me is, I don't know how to get angry about something that I feel like the climate news is pure depression to me.
Yes.
Like, whereas for you, it's still anger. Like, how can we get more people angry about it instead of just like, shh.
Oh, well, yeah. What can I do? But it's like, like the whole, what's the point? What's the point of anything? What's the point?
Yeah, no, but like in terms of control, you obviously still feel you have some power in this.
Well, what I think is that if I do the things that I can do and tell people about them, then it might give them some ideas. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so in a world where we still need social proof that a certain behaviour is acceptable, like being vocal about the things, the choices we make or that I make to be more climate friendly, I don't know, I think is one of the things I can do. So it's not just doing them, but also telling people about the things that I do. So I'm not telling you to do it, but I'm not some freaky hippie.
Yeah, well, what I'm getting from this podcast is it's very hard for me now to just not think about it. Which, frankly, like a year ago, I was still pretty much just like, I just can't even think about that. Right, and now I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna. This is another bit of plastic.
Yeah. But I think that if you're going shopping and you're first of all, why are you going shopping? Do you really need that thing you're about to buy? I mean, that's what I do.
Can't go shopping at the moment.
So it's like,
and I do need that thing I'm about to buy.
I do really need it. It's like, do I need it? What do I need it for? How much do I need it? Do I need that particular one? Is there one that has a, less impact? Is there one that comes in less plastic? But though there are all these massive reports to say, I'm not vegetarian or vegan.
Well, I'm better in that regard.
You are better than me in that regard, for sure.
My problem with this is, like, my interests commit me to a certain flipping carbon footprint. Like, this room has devices drawing energy, and like maybe my thing can be, maybe I can find a way to have like a sustainable music studio and make that a thing. I wonder if are there any of those? Like, that'd be a nice challenge to commit myself to, maybe. Well, it seems to mean going to the countryside, unfortunately, but
I don't know. I think it's down to, for example, I have moved my website off this hosting, but I used to have eco-friendly hosting, which meant that the data center was powered by wind farms and solar panels. So even though, being on the internet uses energy, it's like that whole blockchain conversation we had. Yeah. Like, if it's renewable, fair enough. It's immediately less of an impact. One of the things that is abundantly clear from this report that came out.
Let's summarise that report for those of us that may not have...
If we do nothing, then we will see catastrophic climate breakdown within the next 12 years.
And what does that mean in practice?
That means areas of the planet flooded, uninhabitable.
Which areas?
There are maps.
Okay.
It means parts of the planet becoming so hot that you can't live there, you can't grow food there that you currently are. We're going to have climate refugees. We think we've got refugee problems now. They will only get bigger. We have got pollution is all part of this. We've got, we're just basically destroying our own habitat. We are destroying habitat for animals that we need. We're part of a balanced ecosystem. We're filling our seas full of plastic and chemicals that are poisoning the sea. We're talking about the destruction of the coral reef. We're talking, it's just like there is no good news story in any of this. And we're already at a point where we can only limit the change. We are no longer at a point where we can stop the change. I've started using the phrase climate breakdown because I read the other day somewhere that it's a more acceptable phrase to people. We talked about climate cancer. Yeah. Climate change sounds, again, even quite innocuous. Climate breakdown, I think, is you won't be able to predict your seasons. You won't be able to. I mean, it's October.
I feel like that already.
Well, yeah, it's October in Brighton. We don't have our heating on because it's too warm. It's like whereas over in Suttivan, the sea's got cooler faster than it has since the 70s. It's like it's
we're like hitting records all the time, aren't we?
All the time. Record heat, record rain, record storms. America's being beaten by storms. There's we are already at unpredictable. And unpredictable makes life more difficult for everybody. In a high-pitched incredulous, you can't keep doing the same things you've always been doing and thinking that some magical way it's going to get better, because it's not. If we can learn nothing from British politics at the moment, is that there is no grown-up who's going to step in, because all the people in the positions of authority have completely lost the plot. So, Theresa May calls bloody press conferences and says nothing.
Completely, the criteria for being at the wheel of this ship has become so perverted that, forget about any sort of, values being applied to anything that might actually, solve the real problems of our time, which are not the things that you are being told are the problems.
It's like refugees coming to Britain is not a problem. Refugees coming to the United States of America is not the problem right now. Refugees are not the problem. Climate change is the single biggest problem facing all of us. That's going to exacerbate everything else.
And it's going to mean even more refugees.
And it's that's the other thing about Deborah Francis White's thing the other day when she was talking about the value of refugees over having a baby.
Yeah. It's the Guilty Feminist Companion podcast where we talk about Deborah Francis White every week. So, rage is justified right now.
It is.
Where it's easier to find, frankly, it's easier to find than ever. You can all you have to do is scroll. If you want to get angry, just scroll. If you want to get literally just fucking scroll down a bit. But maybe have a pen and paper ready. Maybe have a blank email to Theresa May open or someone. Just scroll down, start typing. I don't know. What else? What can we do?
I think that what we, in the same way that the patriarchy isn't going to get smashed by, people sitting at home talking about it, the environment is not going to be, the world is not going to improve unless we all get stuck in. That's it. It really is. It's even if you just change. And I think this idea that if you can't tell a million people or you can't change the world or traceably that you're not having an impact is bullshit. Even if you just talk to your neighbour and get them to change something, or 3 of your friends, or just it doesn't matter. Every single one of those bits and pieces adds up.
And would you get angry?
No.
To your neighbour, that's the thing, right?
I don't get angry. No. If I'm talking about this kind of shit, there's I think anyone who's got to episode, 47?
47.
Anyone, I think they've kind of got a flavour for the fact that I'm not having a go at you, but I feel like you should be feeling the same outrage that I do. But if I'm talking to somebody about what they do, I approach it in a very gentle. Oh, really? Well, yeah, we do that. I don't do that. I do this.
So is that a bit of a paradox then, that the way to make change now can't be with anger? Or, like, where can we put the anger and when do we rein it in, and, like, in the name of actually... Because I think a lot of the problems aren't... Like, you start... If you get angry, if you get into a flame war on Twitter, on Facebook, that's the pattern and it solves nothing. So how do we get out of that cycle? You have to kind of come back later when you've had to think about it.
Well, that's what I think. I think the anger should be the thing that makes you go, yeah, I'm not going to do nothing.
We're all angry. Like, we're all angry about different things.
But
like, everybody's furious about white people. Everyone's furious because they're an incel. Everyone's furious because they're not allowed to say anything anymore. Everyone's fucking furious right now for a million different reasons. And this is the paradox that, like, the thing that makes one person angry, like, using anger a lot of the time isn't the way to have that conversation.
No, it's not. But your anger is the way should be your trigger to have a word with yourself about what it is that you're willing to do or not do. You know, it's like, I get really angry about this, therefore I'm not going to keep quiet anymore. From now on, if I see somebody doing a thing, or I am actually going to tell everybody, I don't know what I do anymore. It's like, I pay extra for my electricity from a renewable source, that kind of thing, you know. Like, I'm not shopping around for the cheapest. I am in a luxurious position that I can afford to pay more for electricity that comes from a renewable source. But if you can afford to do it, do it.
People are standing up for what they believe in more than ever, and Donald Trump is as much of an example of that as you are, unfortunately. The right have got angry that they are being told what to do all the time, and they're standing up and they're saying stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of getting angry about what you believe in and ranting about it in public, and there's generally you can find an audience of people that believe that. And this plays back into, I despise the notion of devil's advocate, but if everyone's just angry about their thing and everyone's angry about a different thing, it's just not going to get us anywhere.
But I don't believe personally that the anger I feel about things, or the rage, does not make me act angrily or ragefully in my day-to-day existence.
Okay.
This podcast, for me, and maybe this is a description of our podcast, is an opportunity. It's a safe place where I can be angry and express my rage. And then the actual process of having these conversations makes me think about what other things I could do that would be cleverer. And it's that sort of taking the rage and the anger and trying to work out how to be clever with it. I think that's what we have to do. It's not about going around being angry at people who are behaving differently or not worried about the same things as you. It's about going, I am really angry about this because I'm really worried about it, or it really scares me, or it really freaks me out. Right, what can I do about it that won't make other people fight me, but will somehow inspire them to do something different? It's like, you know, tomorrow I'm doing that Think Nation volunteering on Saturday, where a bunch of young people are going to sit around coming up with, well, they're not going to sit around, working very hard for the day, to debate and think about solutions to big problems in the world. And the one I've got is beach pollution. But it's like, you know, go along to things, make sure that there's conversations happening about it, because it's only when people totally ignore stuff and don't talk about it, that absolutely nothing happens. And, that is an incredibly positive event as far as I'm concerned. It's an organisation specifically designed to get young people involved in more interesting things, to put them together with mentors who are older, who are in technology, who might bring something else to the conversation. That's, I see that as a positive way of taking that. Sort of the rage is prompting me to action, but the action itself is not rageful.
So maybe it's commit, like in the same way that something I miss about not drinking anymore is that something I used to do would be when I was drunk and therefore less inhibited, I would commit myself to something that I would normally be too scared to commit myself to. Yeah. Maybe use the anger in that way. When you're feeling the anger, make a commitment to something and then follow through on that commitment in a long-term way. And maybe that's how we can make a bit of progress here. And those trolls, those people, those Trumps, they coast by on they just complain and say obvious shit that isn't true, but they're not doing anything, they're not acting, they're just kind of posting comments and think that that's enough. So how we can do better than that is, I'm furious about something, I'm going to commit to an action, and then that is going to become part of my life. And I will remember that I was angry about it. And maybe when I'm talking about it in that room with those people, then I kind of bring out that anger and that passion again, and hopefully give people ways to articulate their own anger. And that's something I hope that our podcast can help with as well, is if we can articulate things that maybe other people are feeling. I hope that if we can give people the language to talk about things, that could be really good. And if people can give us the language that we lack as well, not to say that we know more.
I think one of the things about high energy emotions like rage and passion is that they're often come across quite similarly. It's like I've been in meetings before, I've been talking about something like this, at this tempo, at this energy, and people are like, oh, you don't need to get angry. I'm not angry.
Yeah, you've got to be, Abby, you suffer from being female, you see. You've got being a woman, itis.
Yeah.
That means that,
Thanks for listening to our podcast. We do hope that you enjoy it. We appreciate the time you've given to it to get this far, to get to the end of the episode. If you'd like to drop us a line, you can do that at hello@grandpodcast.com. As we do like to hear from people, especially if there's something that you think we've missed or something that you think we should pay a bit more attention to.
Also, I sometimes I'll trawl meetup.com for some like-minded people to meet. But if you know stuff in London that's worth getting involved with, or Brighton, then give us a shout. Let us know. We'll talk about it on here probably. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter,
and they can find me at michaelforestmusic.com. And our website is grandpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the podcast. You can go and see our library. If you sort of share it with someone, you can either share it from the website, or you can share it from Apple Podcasts, or you can share it from however you share it. Give us some reviews and give us some ratings, and you can do that by the episode as well. Anyway, thanks for listening, and we will hopefully see you next week. Bye!
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 Bye.